Hi, welcome to part 2 of Collapse. We're going to go back to the annex and we're going to go back to Collapse. And now, the first time we met, we talked about the big picture and reading, but now we're going to go to the Infographic tab. So you are going to be creating an infographic, and I have to give a disclaimer here. My example of an infographic is not my favorite and it's not ideal. I think it really needs a lot of work. It was created the first year we did the infographic, so quite some years ago, and I think we have some issues with it and it doesn't really fit quite the model, so I don't want you to use this as an example. There's a really good chance that when you log on in the next couple of days it will be a different thing. So I'm going to get out of that, but I just want you to know that there is an example of an infographic there. What we created for you to make sure that you really got a handle on this is to create a template for you to organize your thinking to produce the perfect infographic. So we want to make sure you hit on the following points. And I'm going to stay within the slides here. You will have access to the slides. The reason I want to do this is because we have instructions in the speaker notes. So clearly this is Collapse, how you choose to fail or succeed. You need to literally figure out where in the world your country is, so you can drag that, let's say you can drag it to where in the world your civilization is on the map, so that little doohickey can go to a spot on the map. So you have to have a map and show where in the world your place is. You will need to have a thesis statement, so that's something you'll need to come up with. You will need to create a bullet list of essential background information over here. And then you want to write a tagline. And when I say the speaker notes has instructions, it explains what a tagline is. So be sure to read what it says down here. So that's that. This is probably where you're going to spend the bulk of your time. You need to figure out basically what the causes for collapse or endurance were for your civilization. So the header, where it says vestibulum, is going to be your sort of your big idea. So it might be deforestation, it might be climate change, it might be drought, it might be food shortages or soil erosion, whatever it is. All right, so you're going to have that as a big header. In this space, you're going to describe, really, it has to be able to fit in this box. So you're going to be very succinct. You can't be wordy. You have to be very efficient with your words. You're going to describe how that played out in your civilization, right? So we have 8 boxes here. Chances are you don't need 8 boxes. So you can go ahead and delete as many boxes. Well, at least have 4, but you can delete up to 4 boxes. You also will need to drag one of these icons onto each little item. The reason you're going to do that is each one represents either politics, economics, environmental, or social. So you're going to have to identify whether that cause falls into one of those categories, which of those categories it falls into. That too is going to require your group to come to consensus. You've each read these chapters individually. Now you need to come together and say, hey, what are the causes for our collapse or survival? Identify those. Then just figure out how you're going to describe them, and then decide whether they're political, economic, environmental, or social. Got it? Okay, so this is a slide that should take your group some time. This next slide is actually pretty easy. You're really basically just dragging, you're dragging a check into a box where this cause in Dimond's thesis applies to your civilization. So this is really just a question of a checkbox. And then you have, I've given you 2 options here. So you're definitely going to have a graph, right? Either this or this. Now, I've provided the comparison chart so that if you have, let's say, Pitcairn, Henderson, and Mangareva, you can compare your societies, or Haiti, Dominican Republic also offers an opportunity for comparison. This one, many of you don't have a comparison that's provided in your chapter. So for those of you who do not have a comparison, then you need to create some kind of a table. This was just a random table that I created. It doesn't really apply so much, but I just basically went and got some separate information. So if you click on this little caret here, and then you go to open source, you can see that there's information. Now you could add into this separate line and create another graph or another table. So you can add another column, you can add another row. You can do a lot of things with this data. So this is not necessarily what you want to compare. You may choose to look at population density, or you may choose to look at some other aspect. But what I have found is, as I look through the chapters pretty carefully, there is data in every single one of those chapters from which you can create a graph. So that is one of the things that you need to create for your course, or for your infographic. So whether you do a comparison chart or you do an actual graph, that is fine, but you need to include either a table or a graph or a comparison chart. So those are that. You can copy and paste the citations for Dimond here. So these three citations, I can do this. These three citations are all Jared Dimond. So you've got the video, the op-ed piece, and a chapter in a book. Obviously, you need to make sure that you change the title of your chapter and the page range for your book. I just chose North Greenland's End, but that's not necessarily the chapter you would have had. In addition to this, I included that was the data I used for my where I got the data for my graph, and then this was an image, and this was also an image. Okay, so I had two images that I wanted to make sure that I included in my citation. You have a teamwork table, so I want to make sure that you document your process and who was involved in what. The last slide is really a rubric, and I'm not sure if your teacher is going to use that rubric. If so, you have access to it by clicking on this link, and you can say, but you can see if you click on the link, it's the first thing it says is check with your teacher, because your teacher may use a different rubric than this one. And that rubric would be for the presentations and the infographic. So that's really my spiel for today. Go ahead and get started. If you have any questions or feedback for us about this template, this is the first time we're using it, so we welcome your feedback. Thank you.